Hey, we talk a lot about first-time home buyers, but what about first-time home sellers? If you're curious more about selling your home and what those next steps are, that's what we're going to talk about in this video, how to prepare your home for sale. And look, my name's Travis Anderson. I'm here with Peter Lindquist. Let's get started.
Travis, we're at the beginning of a new series. We're going to talk about home selling and the first time you sell a home. Can you just give us a little overview of what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Peter. Super excited. The first video here today, we're going to talk about preparing your home for sale. And then next week, we'll go ahead and talk about pricing your home and how realtors get paid. And in the third video, we'll talk about the process, which will include marketing and things like that. And in the fourth video, we're going to really turn it over to you, and we're going to talk a lot about the different finance options that people have. And then you and I will just kind of wrap it all up in a fifth video for our viewers. And the first thing we do is we set up a walkthrough of their property. I'm going to go through the home and I'm going to look at that home through the eyes of a buyer. I'm going to try to be as subjective as possible, actually, not as objective as you might think. And I'm going to look at the home as if, what would I expect if this home was on the market at that moment in time?
You're looking at it at the house from the view of a buyer.
Okay, so the first thing that I make recommendations on are to have you fix whatever's broken. And I'll explain. So you might have peeling paint around a door outside your house. You might have loose handrails. You might have a door that just doesn't open and shut properly. Maybe you've got some broken screens, right? Anything like that. And I'll make exact recommendations on what I'm noticing, but anything that just isn't working properly or isn't up to not the current code, but to whatever a current standard might be for a buyer looking at a home like yours, I'll make those recommendations first.
Can I ask you on that? In the past, I've actually hired a home inspector to go through to find those things. And in part because I know that whatever buyer is going to eventually want a home inspector. So I want to prepare for that. Is that common for a seller to do?
I would say that it happens. I don't know if I would say it's a majority, though. It's a very good idea to get a third party to take a look at the condition of your home, because there's just things that we're not able to see as realtors, we're not able to see as even homeowners, like getting up on top of the roof or sticking our head in the attic or something like that. So I think having a home inspector out there, Peter, is a really good idea. And it makes that first recommendations that I make a whole lot easier. The second thing we do then is we talk about paint, flooring, and hardware. So we look at the colors that we've chosen and we just try to have it to be neutral. A lot of people will paint their walls white before I even show up. I even don't want that. Just leave everything the way that you've lived in it, and then I'll come out and make recommendations. A lot of times there will be bright colors that people want to color over. Sometimes if it's in a kid's bedroom or something like that, we're just leaving it the way it is, because kids' bedrooms get a little bit of a pass when we're talking about marketing a home. We'll make recommendations on flooring, and then we'll also make recommendations on any hardware that we should be updating. Now, the reason we go, Peter, to paint, flooring, and hardware is because we know that these items give you the most return on your investment. There's nothing that you can do on your home that gives you a greater return on your investment than just updating the paint, updating the flooring, and updating some of the hardware, like your faucets or cabinet hardware, and even appliances I include in that first category.
Wow, that's pretty dramatic. So, in painting, sometimes if I'm a good painter, I can just go ahead and do it myself, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Most of my clients are doing the painting themselves. I'm not always recommending that people do a full paint job or anything like that. In fact, most of the time we're painting one specific room, or we're maybe just adding an accent wall or something like that.
What else do you do?
So once we go from there, which is the biggest bang for the buck, then we move on to, are there any actual improvements that we should be making? Now, once we get to this improvement section, it's really based on your needs as a home seller. Maybe you're right on the fence of going from 500,000 to 550 or something like that. And you really want to maximize that value and push the limits to 550. Well, then maybe I'm recommending a little bit of work on a bathroom or a little bit of work on the kitchen, something like that. But I'm normally not getting that recommendation unless we're trying to really push the envelope on the price. Most of the time we can find comparable homes. Now, again, when I said before, Peter, that the biggest bang for your buck is paint, flooring, and hardware, that's the only thing you can do that you get a 100% return on your investment or more. There's nothing else that you can do to your home that gives you 100% return on investment unless you're doing a pure improvement. So what do I mean by that? Like if you put a new roof on your home, for example, people expect roofs to be in working order. So if you spend 10 grand on a roof, it doesn't actually improve the value of your home by 10,000. The same goes for windows and mechanicals and all of the stuff that would be, I consider a maintenance item. When I'm talking about improving a home, I'm talking about drastically changing the feel of a home, adding a bedroom, adding a bathroom, completely remodeling a bathroom or something like that.
So I'm in my house and I've always thought that having a swimming pool would be the best idea in the world. Should I put that swimming pool in before I even call you?
It's a great question. The way that I generally answer this, Peter, is that many people are calling me asking about, I want to get a pool, or some people will say, I want to convert my basement from a family room and 2 bedrooms to a smaller family room and 3 bedrooms, or something like that. And people do call me all the time. Here's what I always say: you should never do an improvement for the purpose of selling without first calling me.
I think we oftentimes, as consumers, we tend to rely on the internet for our education. And we don't want to bother the realtor. And so we're going to look it up and we find out that, you really need to do these things. But I think the reality is we should be talking to the expert in the local market who's going to be able to give you free advice, right? In terms of what would be the best thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Okay, so the last step here is really the first step, Peter, because I'm sharing it last because every single one of my consumers, we talk about this one, and that would be staging your home and decluttering your home. Okay, so I'm going to do a nice overview for you. This is fairly universal and it works in almost all cases. So when we're talking about decluttering your home, what I want to see is any surface, even inside of a cabinet, if I can see inside the cabinet through like a glass door or something like that, and any surface, including countertops, bathroom countertops, dressers, anything like that, should have no more than 3 items on there. So I always tell my clients, just start packing.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you right, one thing I can do right away is just start clearing off some basic clutter. It might not be everything that I need to do, but it's something that I can start doing. And the rule of thumb is no more than 3 things on a surface.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is something that if you're planning on moving, start packing right away. And when I come up to the property, it's just not uncommon for me to see boxes around or things in disarray, Peter. So yeah, let's start packing. And then from there, when we're talking about decluttering, a lot of people will ask me about those personal items. I do want the big wall with all the wedding photos. Let's take those wedding photos down. All of the other pictures and decorations that we have on the walls, I do want my clients to leave up. I might make recommendations on let's take that picture down and put it over here, or let's move this desk and put it over there. So we'll make those recommendations, but the personal pictures, most of them I do want to have come down. It is perfectly acceptable to leave 1 or 2 personal items in around the home, but we just don't want it to be a focal point of a room.
And why is that?
We really just want to depersonalize the home so buyers feel more comfortable walking through the house.
They can see themselves in the house. They're not seeing you in the house. They're
Yeah.
envisioning themselves in the home.
And then once we get that decluttering done, and after we've moved the home around the way that we want it to look, and again, many times people have already got their home set to where I would consider it to be show ready. So I'm making very few recommendations. But most of the time, I'm making lots of recommendations. And then the people have me back out, and I might add on a little bit. Like now that we've decluttered our home and we've set it up the way that we think we want it, now let's go again room by room and let's make those final adjustments. Let's have the focal point be over here. Let me make one final recommendation on how to stage a home. Every room should have a purpose and a focal point. So if I walk into a living room, I should know that I'm walking into a room that has couches and chairs and coffee tables and maybe a television. I shouldn't be walking into a living room seeing like toys for kids to play in, or maybe like an office. It should have a
If I
purpose
have
and a
my
focal point.
treadmill in the living room, probably not probably something I should move.
Yeah, that's correct. We don't want your treadmill in the living room. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the same holds true for bedrooms and offices and things like that. And a really good rule of thumb is when I open the door and I look across the room, there should be two walls, right? The one of those two walls should have the focal point on it.
I think one thing I can say, having sold homes in the past, is that it's really important as a seller to look at it from the perspective of a buyer. We tend to look at it from the perspective of having friends over that, they understand that I work out a lot and my treadmill is in my living room. But look at it from the standpoint of a buyer, that doesn't make sense anymore. And sometimes we take things personally that our realtor tells us, and we shouldn't be. We need to look at it very objectively and understand that, the realtor is really just trying to look at it from the perspective of a buyer.
Yeah, I think my job, Peter, really is to help you maximize the value of your home in any given market. And so the market's going to dictate the value of your home, the range of value of your home based on what buyers are telling us that they're willing to pay for similar properties. And then my job is to help you maximize it. Not every client does everything that we would recommend, and that's perfectly acceptable. Then we would just adjust the price accordingly to match what the market demands. The only other thing I want to say, I always get this question, and if you've sold a home, Peter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And it's this: they'll say, "Well, Travis, why would I paint that wall? Isn't a buyer going to come in and just do new paint anyways? Or why would I replace that flooring? Isn't a buyer just going to come in and replace the flooring?" Let me just circle back. I always say the same thing. My job is to help you maximize the value of the home. If you don't care about the value of your home, and you would rather sell it at a discount, then let's do nothing. But if you want to maximize the value of your home, I actually don't care if a buyer replaces all of the flooring in the home after I sell it, paints every single room, tears the deck off and puts a patio. I don't care what the buyer does, so long as I've maximized the value of your home.
It's looking at it from the perspective of a buyer. They're looking at a clean new wall that they can easily paint over and in yellow and blue stripes or whatever it is they want to do. But if they see kind of, a dirty blue wall, it's harder for them to envision whatever it is they want to do.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, thanks, Peter, and thank you for watching here. Hey, listen, if you've got more questions or comments about selling your home for the first time or preparing it, hit me a like, subscribe to this channel, hit me up in the comments section. And as always, all my best to you and yours.